Don't forget that you're listening to Nightmare. I slammed on the brakes, my bike wobbled, and I nearly fell onto the pavement. My heart started racing as I read the message. It had been sent from Veronica's number. I looked up toward her house. Her window was dimly lit. Still unsure of what was going on, I answered the call. I half expected to hear her dad's deep voice, but instead, it was Veronica, casual, as if nothing was wrong. "Hey, what's up?" she said. I felt a wave of relief. "Not much. I'm almost at your place," I replied and kept pedaling. But then she asked something that froze the blood in my veins. "Why are you coming to my house?" I stopped again. "What do you mean, why? You texted me. You asked me to come," I said, confused. From where I stood, I could already see the roof of her house. "What text?" she asked, now sounding genuinely puzzled. "Yvonne, I'm not at home. I've been out with my dad since early. I don't even have my phone. I left it at home." A chill ran down my spine. That couldn't be. Then who sent me the message? I was about to ask again, to be sure she wasn't playing a trick on me, when another text came through from her number. "Come, I'm cold. I want to be with you." I looked up at her window, and that's when I saw it. A figure, still, watching me from behind the curtains. It didn't move. It didn't hide. It was just there. I froze. I wanted to believe it was just a shadow, maybe a trick of the light, but no. Someone was in the room, in her room, and they had her phone. Veronica was still talking, but I could barely hear her. I didn't know what to say. I just hung up. I stepped back with my bike, eyes fixed on that silhouette, and then the curtains slowly closed. I stood there, frozen, waiting for something else. Another message, another movement. But nothing happened. The silence was total, like the world had stopped right there in that little stretch of street. I backed away and called Veronica again, my hands shaking. I told her what I'd seen. She begged me not to go near the house, told me to call her dad, said no one could possibly be inside. But my mind wasn't working anymore. Something had used her number, had said all the right things, had chosen the perfect time. It made no sense, but it was happening. I finally left, pedaling aimlessly through the streets. Only when I reached the corner did I dare to check my phone again. Another message waited on the screen. Just one word from her number. "Hold me." I closed my eyes. I didn't know if I was dreaming or if I had already crossed into something I couldn't come back from. That night, I didn't go home. I didn't sleep. I stayed at a gas station, leaning my bike against the wall, eyes fixed on my phone, powered off. I was too afraid to turn it back on, afraid to see another message or to hear another voice. It felt like if I did, something would fully cross over, something that wasn't meant to. The next day, Veronica texted me from her real number, asking why I never showed up. I told her the basics, just enough to not sound insane. She and her father checked the house. No one had entered. The phone was lying on the bed, battery dead. They never figured out how those messages got sent. Since then, I haven't walked down that street at night. And sometimes, when I'm alone, I swear I feel my phone vibrate, but when I check it, there's nothing. Just that same heavy, cold feeling, like something is still waiting for me.
Don't forget, you're listening to A Nightmare. My neighbour was, quite literally, a witch. She hated us with a passion that you could feel in the air. Once, she and her children were like part of the family, but that was buried in a distant past. For years, we had sensed her envy, but we never knew exactly when the attacks began. What we did know was that the paranormal events were constant, and deep down, we always knew it was her. Every time something happened, she would come out the next day and look at us with a mocking smile, as if she was reveling in her actions. We completely underestimated her, thinking it all came down to noises, shadows, witchcraft left at the door, things that in our minds couldn't really hurt us. Until that night came. My mother's terrified scream woke us all. When we got to her room, she barely cracked the door open and told us it was an animal, but that she had already killed it. My brothers believed her and turned around, wishing her good night. But an animal? My mother had always been brave, even braver than my older brothers, so I looked at her in disbelief. She didn't even seem to believe her own excuse. She let me in. Once alone, she told me she had woken up feeling uneasy, with a deep sense of dread. She couldn't fall back asleep until something at the far end of the bedroom caught her attention. The silhouette of a woman. She looked exactly like my sister, but it wasn't her, not only because my sister didn't live with us, but because that woman's jaw was completely destroyed. And still, there was something familiar about her. My mum screamed when that thing started crawling toward her bed. After hearing that, I decided not to let her sleep alone. Despite the heavy atmosphere in the room, I lay down with her. I preferred that to being alone with the darkness. The next morning, feeling like I hadn't slept at all, I rushed out to university. I was running late, but just before I reached the bus stop, I heard my neighbor shout, "Not even a thank you, not even for sending your sister to visit your dreams." The sinister laughter that followed made my skin crawl. I pretended not to hear and kept walking. I came back at night. The old woman was sitting outside her door. "Poor dog, poor dog. Who's going to protect us now?" she murmured between awful giggles. I rushed into the house and straight to see Luna, our 10-year-old dog. Despite her age, she was strong, pure energy, and hated the neighbor and her children. She always chased them away when they got too close. I let her out to guard the house. I thought they might try to rob us again, like they had before. But that night, Luna didn't bark, didn't move. There was only a tense silence that left me uneasy. The next morning, I left early for school. But during class, I got a message. My mum said Luna wasn't doing well. I got worried. I remembered I hadn't put her sweater on the night before. Shortly after, another message came. She was having seizures. I ran out of class. Within 10 minutes, I was on my way back. The last message I got read, "We're getting in the car, but she didn't make it." I locked myself in my room when I got home. I felt guilty. I was sure they had given her something. I hated myself, almost as much as I hated those footsteps I had been hearing for the past hour, circling around. Then I heard them enter the house. I looked out the window. It was my mum and my brothers. The footsteps inside circled once more and stopped. Around midnight, I began to hear whispering, like someone speaking in the yard. I opened the window, but no one was there. Yet, when I looked toward the pine tree, I saw the witch. She was in rags, standing still, staring at me. That night, I was not alone. I couldn't move. I wanted to scream, to pray, to do anything, but I couldn't. Then I heard it breathing. That thing was growling right behind my neck. The weight on my back was unbearable, like my spine was about to snap. And then, all of a sudden, it was gone. I shot up, gasping for air. I tried to make sense of what had just happened, but the tears wouldn't let me think. The clock read 3:17 a.m. I kept telling myself it was just a nightmare. Sleep paralysis. That's all. Everything's fine, I kept whispering. I almost believed it until those same footsteps came up the stairs again. I screamed, completely desperate. My family came running. I didn't know what to say. The first words that came out of my mouth were that I had hit myself while moving some stuff around. My mom, confused, scolded me for doing that at such a weird hour. She took me to her room without asking anything else, but it didn't matter whether I was in her room or mine. There was no part of the house that felt safe anymore. That morning, I went back up to my room and stood by the window. One thought had been drilling into my mind. How did I see the witch so clearly last night? Our wall is ridiculously tall. She would have had to be at least 13 feet high for me to see her full body from the yard. I didn't go to class. My back ached, like I'd been beaten. Nothing sat well with me. My older brother saw how bad I looked and decided to take me to the doctor. I slept most of the way in the back seat, but something about how quiet and serious he was made me think he was scared too. When we got back, he grabbed my arm firmly. "You need to tell me what's going on," he said. So I told him everything. He wasn't surprised. He admitted he'd heard me laughing and humming in my sleep for the past few nights. And that same afternoon, the guard at the pharmacy told him that the old woman sitting in our black car looked terrifying. But the thing is, I was alone in that car. The thing with the car didn't even shock me. I'd been feeling like I was being watched for days. The fact that others were starting to notice it too gave me a strange kind of relief. That same night, my family brought over a woman, someone who didn't care what time it was, and started praying the moment she stepped inside the house. She walked through every room, then spoke to each of us alone. When it was my turn, she told me things no one could have known, that I lacked faith, and that made me an easy target, that because the entity couldn't get to my family directly, since they were so devout, it came through me. A few weeks later, I moved out, partly for my health, but also for their sake. I never went back to that house. Things calmed down, but they never fully disappeared. Since then, faith is something I work on daily. There's a line from The Exorcism of Emily Rose that stayed with me. How can you doubt the existence of God when I am showing you the devil? Thank you for reading my story.